request directly to the commissioners?
I'm not sure at this point of time. I don't know about.
We can talk, and they might can say no, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, for like Mr. Johnson's legal services, that's not considered part of our budget, that's just the county budget, right? So we don't need to ask for like,
Because this is
$250,000
the
for you guys.
Excuse me. Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair, if I could also speak to something about the budget of what this is kind of just happening now. Where I don't know if you're aware, you're probably not aware,
No, we're not.
something called the precinct project. And so our office is preparing for Census 2020. As part of that, the State Board of Elections has been tasked at looking at the precinct boundaries by North Carolina law that was enacted just a few years ago. The precinct boundary lines have to map to the census boundary districts. And so in the coming, we just received, the counties just received an email maybe a few days ago that in the coming days, the people in my agency who's working on that project will be sharing what will be possibly the new precinct boundaries as they adjust to the census boundary lines for purposes of, I believe, implementation of January of 2020. There is some possibility that your number of precincts may increase as part of that project. I don't know.
Is it based on population?
It's based on several factors, proximity to voting sites, but they have to, one of them is that they have to link. You cannot split a precinct, you can't split a census block. So there may be some variations, even in your precinct boundaries that would go into effect in January 2020. I bring that up because there's also the possibility, because of population being one of the factors, there seems to be how do I put this, the General Assembly seemed to suggest that they wanted to make sure that maybe they reduce the number of precincts, not increase them. A lot of times counties, because of one-stop voting, want to expand the boundary and have less precincts, for budget purposes,
yeah.
we understand. So that's just a possibility. So that may come up, and so that may be something that you may have to present to your to the county commissioners, because of that date of January 2020. It would affect this upcoming fiscal year. The other thing that is new is that I sent out email communication once I received notification from my IT department, and they're going to follow this up with a numbered memo that I don't know what computer software that you guys are using. If it's not Windows 10, if it's Windows 7 or Windows 8, it has to be upgraded to Windows 10, because Microsoft they're deprecating Windows 7, and it will no longer receive security updates, and our system, we will not allow, of course you wouldn't want us to, you don't want to, SEAMS, being the state's voter registration database, in an application that is not receiving security updates.
So that would be an added expense if we are not already there.
Right.
Okay. Is included in this budget, you mentioned to us before that there are some places that are used as polling places that we have to pay an expense for. That's included in the budget?
Yes.
So was there any change? Did people raise the rent or anything like that?
No, we had, not this time.
Okay.
How many facilities do we have that do that?
We pay rent to 10, 12, somewhere like
Maybe,
that.
sometime coming up when we're gonna meet, you could get us a list of
Okay,
those, yeah.
Okay.
And I would like to be aware of that, and so, because that's always a possibility that the rents could change,
But look,
or like in our case now, we had to move a polling place and that kind
we
of
had
thing.
one that changed drastically.
Yeah, so I would like to know that. And maybe
We would
who
like to know
and who owns the facilities and so
Right.
forth.
Okay, all right.
Anything else about the budget?
Well, how about employees of this department are not, there's not a budget item for that, that's just, they're considered county employees, is that right?
Right.
Okay.
All right, the next item is the Homeland Security Audit Report. We have that in front of us. And this was for the sake of going over this so that we could see what things have been done and things that need to be done so that we can address the board for to see when we could take care of these things.
Madam Chair, I would suggest that we might table this and give
Yes.
us a chance to
That's
look
what I was
over it. Okay, if that's
Yes, I'd like to have a copy of that too, Madam
Okay.
Chair. That's your,
We'll see that you get them.
just make sure
Okay,
that.
so this is,
Because it's pretty, it is pretty lengthy, and some members of the public might be interested in having one, I don't know, but, as I mentioned before, I know that the previous board passed a resolution to ask the county commissioners to make all the recommended
Yeah,
security.
that's why I was wanting to make sure that, just from a legal aspect, I just want to make sure that we're following what they recommended.
that's what we want to know.
Yeah.
Okay, so I need to put that to a motion.
Table
We
it?
can just table it.
Do we need to put that to a motion? Do we need to-
Yes, you can.
I make a motion that we table until next meeting.
It's removed and properly second that we table this to the next meeting. Question? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign, hearing none. The Homeland Security Review will be tabled until the next meeting, giving us time to look over it, and our attorney will get the opportunity to look at it as well. All right, next item, director's updates, and here we have, we get some feedback on the one-stop voting that, the first day was on yesterday.
Well, we had a semi-busy day. They voted 51 yesterday, which was, pretty good, I think. It's a little low, but considering that what all that's gone on, we still have some people who want to vote. And we're having it here. It's 8:30 to 5, Monday through Friday, up until May 10th.
So everything went smoothly?
Everything went smoothly.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. And make sure you get the word out to the people to let them know that voting is going on. And, the dates and times. Has that been published in the newspapers? I don't think so.
Mhm.
What did? what
But
side?
Bladen Journal it was.
Yeah.
In the Bladen Journal. Okay. But now, and mentioning that, I know this is not under your directive, Miss McCoy. I did read Bladen Online, did give some feedback on voters' rights. I don't know if anyone else saw that. They gave some information about the voting process. So those of you that would like to, you can go to Bladen Online and review that. I did see that on yesterday. I did not read it to the entire.
They do. I think.
They had a nice article explaining the absentee voting. and stuff.
Bladen Journal?
Bladen Journal did.
Okay, I know Bladen Online had it as well. Okay. Item number 5, individuals wishing to address the board.
Yes, I have one question regarding absentee balloting. Outside of the time when
Is
a
there-
voter,
Question. Is there, I want to do parliamentary procedure correctly here.
Just ask him to state his name.
Okay, yeah.
okay, it's for
Mr.
instance,
Benson, okay.
citizen of Bladen County.
Write that down.
But
Yeah, that's right.
my question is dealing with absentee balloting. Outside of the time when the voter brings their ballot in, a qualifying family member or a guardian, or when that ballot comes in, maybe from military personnel, and it's put in a envelope, is there any other time that a ballot should come in and it doesn't have postal markings or a stamp on it? If outside of those realms, the voter brings the ballot in, a qualifying family member, a legal guardian, or it's emailed in from a military personnel, is there any other time that the absentee ballot would not have a postal marking or a stamp on it?
So let me say one thing. So you're asking me a question, and then you're asking the chair, Madam Chair, for permission
Right.
to ask me a question.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, do I have permission to?
Sure.
Is that what how you want this
Yes.
to transpire? For me to
Yes.
answer? Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure that we're, so that there's. I'm not quite sure I understand your question, so maybe let me respond this way. The method, let's take civilians. The method by which a civilian absentee voter can return a ballot is either by mail or in person, or a near relative can return, or legal guardian, a ballot in person. If a ballot is placed into the mail stream, then yes, a stamp should be placed on it. There may not always be a postmark, but and sometimes there's not postage, and the post office will return the ballot anyway. So a ballot could be received certainly by mail, or a ballot for civilians could be received in person from someone who's qualified, or it should be someone who's qualified to return that ballot. Military would be by mail, by email, or by fax. And there are deadlines, for, when a ballot, for both of those, when a ballot should be returned. So are you asking, is there any other way, other than by mail for civilians, for instance, by mail or in person, that a ballot could be returned? And specifically, to the extent, is that what you're asking?
Right.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any other way. So civilian absentee ballots are returned by mail or returned in person. On occasion, by mail may be because it's close to the deadline. It could be overnight delivery, FedEx or UPS delivery, but it's going through some type of mailing process.
If I could say this, I was at an absentee ballot meeting in November election, and I asked basically the same question, and this is the way Board Member Rob Davis explained it to me. He said that every absentee ballot they processed that was from a Bladen County resident, not the military ones, because they're in a different envelope anyway, right? He said that every absentee ballot they processed should have a log entry to match its return, or it should have a postmark. That's the way he explained it to me. And he, in fact, himself questioned some that were returned without a postmark.
If they
for
get
that very
30 or
reason.
40 that doesn't have a stamp on it, how could they have gotten in here without being postmarked or stamped on?
He questioned some himself that did not have a log entry and did not have a postmark on it. He questioned some himself, and they put them in the, we're not sure, we're gonna have to do some more checking pile.
So I'll speak to this. Based on what I indicated the process should be, remember that return absentee ballot task. The staff, based on state board policy and rules consistent with that absentee register that is required, it goes into the SEAM system. Every ballot that is returned, when they take possession, it's a tracking system. It's like a chain of custody system, that it has to be logged. It should be logged. They're mandated to log it into SEAMS, and that becomes the tracking log, so that there is an indication of the date of the return. I do not remember. Does it track return method? We may even track return method. So that log also indicates that it was for civilians, it was returned in person or by mail. And then let me also speak to this. So I said there are times due to postal processes, which we are aware of and which I stay every year in contact with the Postal Service, North Carolina law, when you are, a civilian is mailing an absentee ballot, during that window of time when absentee ballots can be accepted, you don't have to you don't have to look for a postmark date. It comes in by mail, and it's fine, it's timely, as long as it's timely. If it is received after Election Day, and this will be important to you guys too, because it gets, if it's received after Election Day, so up until Election Day, received by mail, don't look at the postmark date, fine. After Election Day, you have to look at the postmark date. There has to be a postmark date, and it has to be on or before the date of the election. If it's received during that time period, even up to the Friday after Election Day, then it's deemed timely. If it's received the day after Election Day and there is no postmark, based on the State Board of Elections, the state board members, and they, know this, they had a directive a few years ago, and they, based on the statute, you can't count that ballot. So even though it's received by mail the day after Election Day, so you would believe that it was definitely mailed prior to, on or before Election Day, can't count it because there's a missing postmark.
There has to be proof that
And
it's
it
to be proof
There
that.
has to be proof, and so the law's pretty rigid on that. So I say that to explain, and so why I have to stay in contact with the post office. When mail is being processed, you put your mail maybe in a mailbox or a receptacle, that mail is picked up, transmitted to a processing distribution center, which may not even be, is outside of the,
Our mail goes to
Charlotte.
it goes to Charlotte. So it gets picked up, it goes to Charlotte, and Charlotte is where typically it'll get that cancellation or the postmark. Sometimes it doesn't happen. One of the
It
reasons,
takes 3 days to get a letter mailed here.
because of, it's the post office, we can't always control, it doesn't always have a postmark. Should it always have a stamp? One would think, but we get ballots that do go out, voters send them and they don't put a stamp on them. Should you get a big stack? No, that would be a red flag. One of the reasons why we have this little small envelope, which we'll be changing back to a larger envelope because this is too small, and because of the new law that was passed with voter ID, the process for this is going to change. And so, but we'll get into that. But I'll have to have a larger envelope designed, and that will have to be. This meets this weird shaped envelope. This meets the postal. This is the maximum specification to be considered a letter. So if you get a single
The rate of
postage,
49 cents.
the 40, whatever it is,
Whatever it is.
whatever it is,
Five
now. Yeah. So when we go back to the larger envelope, right? We used to have larger envelopes. That's considered a flat, and that will be at it's going to be at a flat rate. So the voters will pay more money when it's when it comes back in.
Unless the proposed law can make them prepaid.
Yeah, exactly, which that will cost certainly more. So, and why is that important? A flat, chances are because it's larger, it does not go through, the mail, these machines, it's just like, boom, mail is just going through and that's when it's getting into cancellation. It's harder to do that on a flat. So they can't guarantee, but that I work with the Postal Service to look for that. It has official election mail emblem on it. And so when they see that, they are supposed to hand counsel it if it doesn't have a postmark, but we're dealing with people, so that's the manual process. I have to generalize this. Again, I want to make sure that I'm not speaking of, answering what may have happened previously. Certainly going forward, and the board, absolutely, if you see something that looks suspicious, and this is both for staff and for you guys, they're supposed to say, this is coming in, and that's when you will, take whatever appropriate action. And certainly if you suspect that something is missed, notify the State Board of Elections.
If I can ask a question, Madam Chair, it's on a related subject. Have any individuals or groups notified you or notified your office that they are conducting voter registration drives, get out the vote, anything like that?
The only person that I know has come in to get registrations is for McCready.
Who's who?
McCready.
For a Dan McCready campaign.
Dan McCready. That's the only one I know of.
When people come in, now, and I don't know how it's done now, I just know in past elections, that sometimes people would come in and say, can I get 100 voter registration forms? And Veronica explained to me the other day that you give them one and say you can make copies. Have we had people come in and ask for a huge number this time?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
I mean,
'Cause
he's asked for some.
Yeah, I'm sure he has. He's a really young guy. So are we keeping a log of that kind of thing? Okay, good, because I know most counties do that now, so that's good. Okay, that was it.
And you keep a log as to how many?
Okay, that's it. I don't have any other questions.
Anyone else wishing to address the board? Hearing none, do we have a need to go into closed session?
Do we have to
Do we have a
If you have a reason to go into closed
We
session.
don't, we don't.
Else that's
If
not
you
been
don't,
addressed.
then you won't do.
Okay.
I don't even have to address
No.
that. Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
I second.
It's been moved and properly second that we adjourn question. Hearing none, meeting is adjourned. Use my gavel.
That's all he's done. Like, someone made the motion.